Thoughts. I'm Chris.
I'm Adam.
I'm Topher.
Today we're going to be talking with Dan Cannelly about running a recording studio. We're also going to have yet another weekly riff challenge and a quick interview with our musical guest, Sparkle Teeth. Let's jump right in. All right. Does anybody have a new gear day this week? We're going to run through this quick.
So mine's not super new now. But I got the pedal that I talked about earlier. I got the Attack and Decay pedal from Electro-Harmonix, and it's so good.
I thought you talked about this last week.
I didn't talk about it. I talked about how I wanted it.
Okay, fair enough.
He was watching the tracking on his phone
That's
all day.
right. Okay.
I was like, oh, one of these days I'd love to have it, and then now I have it.
Very good. So you're gonna send us a little review, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I definitely want to get some
Sweet.
different, because it can make so many different sounds.
Yeah. Nice. Cool.
Chris, didn't you get something?
I did. I am excited. I got my first Vox. I got the AC30 S1, the 112, with the single channel, and it's sitting right over there. Man, is it cool!
It's so beautiful.
It's a beautiful amp.
Thank you. Yeah, I got it in the
Loud.
red, the limited edition red. So that's super cool. And then I got some new pickups for the guitar finally, or for the Telecaster, and they're not in there.
By again?
Oh, so I actually ended up getting two of them. I got a Lawler Specialty, and I got a Seymour Duncan SH1, which is a clone, or I guess it's like loosely based off of the, what's his name? I think last name is Seth Lover. Yeah, Seth Lover. Yeah,
the PSF.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's what it's based off of. And then I got those into the Telecaster, and then realized I forgot to put a ground wire into going to the bridge. So that's not
You don't
working
need
yet.
it.
Yeah, it's just nothing but buzz right now. All right. So next, we're going to do our original riff challenge. You want to introduce us?
Sure.
Okay.
So today's original riff challenge, which I think Chris came up with actually, is what if Metallica had lost their frontman for the day, and happened to the only person around was Bob Dylan. So
I'm super curious to see this.
Today is Bob Dylan fronting Metallica.
You ready for this? It's bad. It's really bad.
Oh, Bob.
He was just lost. That's all it was.
What am I doing?
We're playing what?
He hit the right note.
Where's my harmonica? We'll just pretend that didn't happen. Very good.
Very nice.
All right, we're back on track. Well done. That's exactly it.
That is
I
was wondering how you were gonna pull that off with it's like he's like mostly I think the vocals for hip hop.
I felt like if he showed up with like a guitar or something, there's nothing he could do. But I just
drowned out. Yeah.
I just imagine him like wandering onto stage with a harmonica.
Yeah.
It's like, is it in the right key? No. Like, I'm just gonna play.
That was spot on, sir.
Somebody's gonna hate me for that.
Man.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, did that sound like Sad But True in the background? Is that what you kind of?
That would be. I can't play those riffs because I would,
Yeah. Copyright.
Copyright.
Yeah.
But It could have been,
True but sad.
It was truthfully sad. Yeah.
Yep. Oh God. Beautiful. Okay, moving on. And now for our interview with Dan Cannelly.
Hey guys, this is Dan Cannelly from Chip Tooth Audio, and we are talking to him about his studio here in Fort Wayne, and we're going to ask him a few questions and kind of get some information about running a studio, building a studio, and just kind of all that entails. So how are you doing today, Dan?
I'm doing great. Did some studio things all day, which was really nice. Quantizing some drums for a terrible metal Christmas song that I'm working on, and yeah,
sounds
good
like
stuff.
a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to ask you to start, just kind of how did you get interested in recording stuff in general, and kind of taking us from that to like when you said, hey, I'm going to open a studio.
Yeah. I think it started like a lot of people. In the early 2000s, when I was in high school, I got a Tascam Porta Studio. I don't remember which model. I think it was like Porta Studio 4. But every time I look them up on forums, there's like Mark II, Mark III. Like, I don't know. I just put a tape in, and I had a cheap Radio Shack microphone, and I was making demos for like punk bands that I was in at the time, just like playing like guitar and singing so I could show something to my bandmates, because the alternative at the time was just like a boombox, I guess. And that kind of sparked an interest in it. I had a band director in middle school who showed me a lot of MIDI recording and like stuff he could do on a keyboard, and I remembered that. And so then I bought a keyboard from Sweetwater before it was like the behemoth it is today, when it's still like in a house on Bass Road. And I had this Kurzweil keyboard and my 4-track recorder and like just like an RCA interface, like an adapter basically to get things into my computer. And I recorded into, I don't know if it was even called Audacity then, but it was like whatever it might have been, like some free DAW. Anyway, I made a lot of home demos for like all through high school and college, got into a couple of bands and started recording in studios that were kind of similar to what I have now, like a home studio environment where somebody's got like a setup in their basement or in their garage. And I thought it was fascinating, like just the whole process. And then I got to work in a couple other studios here in town, like Digitrax before. I mean, I don't know if Digitrax is still around, but I did some work there with Matt Riefler as an engineer. And then I worked, I made a couple records with Jason Davis at Off the Cuff Sound, which is like 100% analog studio, which is a really cool experience. And anyway, like the whole time I was just like fascinated. Like, I think the older I got, the more I realized that I was more fascinated by that than I am like playing shows. Like playing shows is great, gigging is fun, but like there's something really magic about making a record that like when you get to just like really focus on like how do you get the guitar to sound like what is a Marshall JCM 800 sound like compared to like a Plexi or compared to a dual rec or a Fender Twin or whatever, like, and how do we like on a guitar, you're basically like in a lot of rock songs anyway, you're playing the same chord shapes, like whether you're playing a jazz song or a Tom Petty song or a death metal song, like it's not that different, but like the gear you use, the microphone techniques, like whatever you're doing, like can drastically alter the whole thing. And I just found that fascinating. So then the pandemic hit and I couldn't play music out anymore, which is kind of how I was getting my creative release. And I got really fascinated by like home recording again. I was like, I should do this. And then I think I'm the kind of person that like, I never do anything halfway. Like, I don't think I do a lot of things, but as soon as I start like down a track, it's like, this is just what I'm going to do. And so I had like 2 years essentially while this has all been going on that I was like, how invested in this can I get? And like, I'm not spending money traveling or going out to eat or doing any of those things, I was like, wow, you save a lot of money, and like a microphone's not that expensive. And then you're like, well, I talked myself into one microphone, I can talk myself into two microphones. And it just kept going. And then 20. Yeah. Like, what's 20 microphones? Like, can you really have too many SM57s? I would argue no.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Being guitar player, yeah, like we're all. It's like at a certain point, like I think microphones for me became like guitar pedals too. It's like I need this and this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like a 7B is basically just a really nice 57, but it's like a really nice 57.
It's not that much more. On the grand.
Don't think about that. It's just a really nice 57.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so yeah, I just got the bug, got really into it, and then found people that needed records, because I feel like, I don't know if this is jumping ahead, but I've spent a lot of time in like punk and metal bands and making music that's like not always something that like Topher, you might have some experience. Like, I'm familiar with some of your projects. Like, sometimes you'd go to work with an engineer in like a punk band, and you want to make sounds that they don't think are right, or like they don't understand. And they're like, why would you do that? Like, why do you want to run your vocals through an old telephone and then blow them up even more with a rat pedal or something like that? And it's like, because it sounds cool and it works for the music.
You want that raw, dirty sound.
You want that? Yeah. Like,
run vocals
like,
through a telephone and a rat pedal.
Yeah, like don't auto-tune this, like, and like,
for sure. Yeah. My I'd say my first album came out like that, whereas I listened too much to the producer or the engineer and didn't speak up enough.
Yeah, and like that has it, like, expertise has its place. Like, there's that's good, but I think that sometimes, like, especially in the kinds of music that I end up working, like the types of bands or musicians I end up working with, like, they just want someone that understands the kind of thing they're trying to do and is willing to work with them and like make that the best it can be. Like, if I get a band and they say, we've never played to a click before, we've never practiced to a click, we don't know how to do that, it's like, okay, maybe we can try the click. But if that's just not working, then like, let's just treat this as band practice, and we're going to do the best we can with this. And I'm totally cool with, having my name attached to that and like the imperfections that come with it, because the people listening to that kind of music listen to a lot of records recorded that way. So it's not weird to them, but it might be weird to somebody that only, like somebody that worships Steely Dan. Not that there's anything wrong with Steely Dan.
Yeah, there's no. I like that. That's a great thing to say. They're just knowing that there's not really a right or wrong way to record music. There's things that get used more often or less often, but yeah, you don't have to record to a click. You can, but
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. You're willing to kind of work with what the artists want to do. So since I know that you've finished building your studio pretty recently, or I don't know if you're actually finished or if you're still in process.
The open breaker box is it's almost there. It's like 90% there.
My eyes were drawn away from it by the cool acoustic treatment that you have. The patterns are awesome.
Thanks.
But yeah, so since you're like kind of in the process, getting it finished up, I was just wondering if you could like kind of share some of the obstacles you ran into and kind of what you've done to overcome like, limitations of having it in a home and the, shapes of rooms and things like that.
Yeah. So the biggest problems are that I'm in a basement. And I'm in a basement in the house that like my family lives in. So I have 2 kids and a wife, and they don't want to listen, even if it's on like a Sunday, to like somebody's grindcore band making a record, or even like, really good traditional heavy metal, or I'm doing an indie pop record this weekend. I'm not like a one-trick pony, but like they don't want to hear it all the time, and I don't blame them. So like trying to separate the basement acoustically from the rest of the house, especially when you don't have the ceiling height. Like I think my ceilings are like 7.5 foot tall, which is like already pushing it on like minimum height requirement for like good overhead placement or something like that. So you can't build the traditional room within a room. So it was getting creative. It was lots of reading on like the John Sayers forum. He's like an acoustician, a lot of gear space deep dives. And then eventually like these panels all came from GIC Acoustics, and they offer free consultations, which is great. Somebody told me about them. The panels aren't the cheapest, and you could probably just take their free advice and like build your own, but I'm also terrible at building things. So I bought, but anyway, it was, so the first big obstacle was isolating sound from the basement. And that was just, I settled on building a double wall. So like I'm sitting in my control room now. There was a wall between this room and like the rest of the basement. I put another wall in front of that and then packed it full of rock wool.
Okay.
And left an air gap so that like it's not just insulation. There's like a gap to kind of, it works like a giant bass trap built behind drywall.
Nice.
And then double doors, and then just from there like weather stripping and sealing like the bottom of the doors with like door seals you would get at Menards for winterizing or something like that. And then the other big problem is basements are usually like rectangles, and parallel walls are bad for recording. So thankfully my basement was long enough that I was able to subdivide it into 2 rooms. So I have a live room and an ISO room, and I built like a 45-degree wall there so that like that already cuts off one. And then in all the corners that were left, I turned those into floor to ceiling bass traps and built those at an angle, and then used acoustic panels to kind of cheat the parallel walls the rest of the way, so that like I don't have like any actual one-to-one parallel walls. And then I was able to get away and in a good cloud over the drums. Like, so those are the big things. Like, and I think it can work for like anybody. Like if you just kind of like, you don't need a space that was like purpose built to be a studio. You just need to like read up on acoustics, because I think that once you like eliminate parallel walls, understand like how bass traps work or how acoustic treatment works, and like how to play to the strengths of your room. Like mine was really long, so I can still get a good like long drum room sound. And like I guess like play to the strengths of your room. Try to separate the sound from the rest of the house so you don't drive everybody crazy. And then that's it. Make up for the shortcomings of having 7-foot tall ceilings in a rectangular room.
Yeah, you work with what you got. You can make good music in any room if you do a good job with it. It sounds like you're adapting well.
Yeah. I mean, you could do the same things that I did in a garage or anywhere. It's just eliminate those like parallel walls mostly. And
do you have a lot of any problem with a lot of sound going upstairs? With I know what you said.
It's
up there and everything.
That's the spot that is the worst. But I did just pack this. I had an old drop ceiling when I moved in. We ripped it out and packed a bunch of insulation up there, and then drywalled it in. So it's a lot more of a barrier than used to be. It's not dead in like the living room, which is right above the basement, but like my family's watched TV up there while I was recording. So they're like, we can hear the bass, but it's kind of like the neighbors are having a loud party, and like it's manageable. So I guess they just love me a lot, which is nice.
That's good. Yeah. You're running a studio at home. So absolutely. Yeah. I totally get it. So let's get into a little bit of a gear talk, I guess.
Sure.
Since what are you using to capture sounds there? Are you specific about interfaces and pre's and mics and all those kind of things?
Yeah. So kind of like everything I did with the construction, I tried to get like the most bang for the buck. So I'm primarily a digital studio, but I put all my money after the construction and like trying to make sure my space was acoustically sound, like the construction and the treatment, into microphones. So I can give like a basic rundown there, I guess. I've got a couple here, like this SM7B, I think is kind of a must for modern rock vocals. I've got an Aston Origin that I use as a large diaphragm condenser for a variety of things.
Great mix.
Yeah, my typical drum setup is this what you guys want? You guys kind of want the rundown, or is this too much?
Yeah, whatever you want to share.
Okay, cool. Yeah, typically like on the drums. So I try to find budget things when I can. I have a pair of Rode M5s that are like a pair of like pencil condensers, and I use those for all my overheads on my drum recordings because I think they sound great, and I don't think the price can be beat anywhere. It's like $300 for a pair of those, I think, new, and you can find them.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything better in the price range.
So I use those, and then like an SE V7X instead of a 57, about the same price. It's SE Electronics instrument mic, instrument dynamic, like a dynamic instrument mic. I use that on snare top, 57 on snare bottom. Trusty AKG D112 as my kick in, and then I've got a pair of Golden Age Project R1 ribbons. They're like their active ribbon mics. I use that as a mono room. And if I need a bigger room, I fake it with plugins because that's what plugins are for. And then from there, 57s and the R1 ribbons on guitars. Nothing else too like esoteric, I guess. The studio itself, in lieu of a bunch of outboard gear, I bought an Apollo X8 because I like a lot of UAD's hardware emulations. Like I don't have an 1176, but I've recorded with a lot of 1176s, and I don't think that their emulation is far enough off for me to tell a difference. So like when I track a vocalist, I can just run it straight through UAD's 1176 emulation and like maybe a preamp emulation and get like a really close to mix ready vocal sound. Like I don't think you need a lot of that. So it's like nice digital gear, but it's not like racks of outboard gear or anything like that. And there's a lot of benefits to being digital. Recall is one of them. Like I don't have to take pictures of where knobs and dials are on things, or like if I record one vocalist and then the band was like, well, we wanted this other person sings too, but they don't sing as loud or they sing way louder, then I don't have to like change compressor settings and try to remember where the first person was at, like if we ever bounce back. So yeah, and then a Mac M1 Mini, which I think is like the best bang for your buck as far as a Mac goes, because I'm a Logic guy. I'm a Logic guy because I knew GarageBand because it was free, and Logic made the most sense going like when I was trying to step up to like a, I guess, professional DAW, if you want to call it that.
Logic makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah. It is sometimes easier. I think you're right. Having a good hardware and then just using really good plugins. I mean, you're cutting down on a lot of extra weight there.
Yeah.
So are you like a band bring all the gear kind of place, or do you keep a collection of amps or things?
Yeah. Right now I'm kind of a band bring all the gear, but I'm trying to change that. So I think that like instead of spending my money on a bunch of outboard gear, I just bought an orange 412 cab, like a one of the PPC 412s. And my goal is to eventually have like a decent amp collection. I've got a Fender DeVille. I'm looking for a couple like high gain amp heads. Just in case somebody shows up and just doesn't have what we need to get a guitar tone. Like I think it's important. That's one spot where I've tried a bunch of different amp sims and I just can't get along with them. Like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, if it's just because I've played through amps forever, but I
talk to this guy offline or something.
Yeah. I do a lot of, for high gain stuff specifically, I do amp sims, but yeah, low gain, no. It's gonna be the real thing.
That's fair. I've never found like an AC30 or a Fender amp sim that I was like, this sounds exactly like, this is that clean sound that I like. I was like, why is this kind of dead?
Yeah, there's supposed to be Neural just released Corey Wong's setup.
Really?
Yeah, and it's on sale right now for $40. So for Black Friday, like they're normally like 80 to 100. So that might be one to check out, and it's entirely clean sounds.
I think you might have sold me on an amp sim, because I've like tried a couple of the Neural. I forget which one I had. I had like an Amp Hub membership or like the subscription, the STL one, and like I think I like one. Like I liked like the JCM 800 they did, but like then I like had somebody bring in like a real JCM 800, and I was like, this smokes like that every day, all day. Like,
that's usually the thing with them. Like you buy one of those packs and you'll find like two of them off it. That's what I do because I got a Sound Labs, and I specifically use the Friedman off of it. And there's like,
is that Amped Roots thing?
That's the one I got. Yep. Yeah. So I got the Friedman, the 5150, Mesa, and one other one. I think it's a standard Marshall, but the Friedman sounds really good. The Mesa's all right, but yeah, if you can pick it up for cheap right now with Black Friday, I'd say grab it while you can.
Okay. Yeah. That Corey Wong thing sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the benefit, of course, now that you've built out a space too, that you can probably mic amps up pretty well and capture the sound,
Yeah.
Sometimes being in a small space like we might be in, I love miking amps up, but sometimes I can get a better sound in a tiny room by just getting a good plug-in or, and I'm
And I think that like a lot of people use those on their mixes, and I've heard so many great mixes with amp sims, and I know it's possible. It's just like a thing. Like, I don't know if I just haven't taken the time to dial it, or if I'm just kind of lazy and I know like how to mic a cab. So it's like, I'm just going to mic a cab. Like it's totally possible. I'm just bad at it, I think. Like,
the other thing, aftermarket IRs with those. That's the other thing I was.
Yeah.
That might be because I've heard people with the same complaint. Like, there's just something off about it. You switch the IR to like the Celestians or Own Hammers IRs, and it like totally. Yeah.
That's a rabbit hole I haven't gone down yet, and I think that might help because it's like a lot of times the stock IR, it's like there's something just a little too like fizzy about a lot of them. There's like a weird like 4K like bump in all of them, and it's like I feel like I'm just EQing out a lot of upper mids, and now it just sounds like, then it makes like everything sound like a dual rec. It's like everything gets into like new metal muddy territory real quick, and I'm just like, wait a second, I don't want that. Yeah. Where's the mid ground? And like, there's no air around this. Like, I like a little bit of air. Like,
I think there's nothing to beat like a really well mic'd up amp in a good.
No, not at all. Yeah,
you can get emulations that sound good, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's move on to another question for you here. I think you kind of touched on what types of music and genres and things like that you work in a lot of the times, but are there any favorite bands and artists you've worked with so far that you're working on right now that you want to talk about?
Sure. So one of my favorites was this last weekend. One of my favorite local guitarists is a guy named Mitch Frazier. I don't know if you're familiar with Mitch.
I know Mitch.
Yeah, like Mitch has been in a lot of bands that I've always really enjoyed, and he's in this new project called Squirrel Cage that does like kind of grungy, sludgy, like 90s rock kind of stuff, but it's still like filtered through, like he's a big like Faces, Stones, like 70s rock guy through and through, which I think like makes sense because I think all those like 90s Seattle bands were influenced by that stuff. Like that was kind of like, let's do that but louder was kind of, I think, like the impetus behind a lot of that. So he's doing a project like that, and he's also a total gear nut. So he came by Sunday with an AC, a Vox AC30, and I'm going to get it wrong. It's like the name vintage. It's a Marshall with the vintage in the name. Like I can't Google it because if I Google vintage Marshall, I just get like
vintage Marshall.
Every guitar amp, but it's like it was like manufactured in the early 2000s. He was telling me all about it, and I knew I should have taken notes. But like those sounded great. We did like 6 mics between 2 cabinets. So like my typical approach is a 57 and a ribbon. Just on any guitar cab. I think it's a really good combination. Because the ribbon kind of balances out the like, I don't know, the brightness of the 57. Like you get all the articulation from the 57, but a ribbon gives it some body. And then we did some like room mics too, because they're totally going for that like organic kind of like band in a room rocking out vibe. And I think that like I'm really excited about that one, and I can't wait to finish it. And I think like if there was one thing I like to do, it's like not so much genre dependent to me. I just like doing like I've always been like a rock guy. So whether like whatever kind of rock we're getting down on, like I want to make like organic sounding rock records the best I can in a basement, like the kind of place that like somebody can show up and we can do it a bunch of different ways. Like we can build a record up from just the drums, or if somebody's like, we want to do 4 songs and track the rhythm guitar, the bass, and the drums at the same time. And like, if you can nail the performance, like great, I'll throw, like, I think when we did their basics tracking, we put, the one guitar player plays through a bassman, and we put the bassman and, the AC30 in the same room, and we just tracked it. And this was all overdubs that we did. And like, bleed be damned, like it's fine. Like lots of records were made that way. We can totally do it. And I think that like, that's what I like to do. So like I work with a lot of metal and stuff, but the metal I'm doing, I'm not trying to do the like really hyper polished, like modern gent or like metalcore production, because like that stuff is cool. It's never been my thing. And I don't think I do a very good job of it. Cause like, I just don't have like an encyclopedic knowledge of superior drummer libraries and like 10 clipping plugins to like really do it justice.
That's fair. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think that's awesome. I mean, the stuff that you're working with, a lot of music that you if it's stuff that like you're gonna do, like you're gonna do a great job, or like at least you're gonna do a much better job if it's a style that you're into, because you're gonna be excited about working with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool project with Mitch too.
Yeah. So
what's next for you? Sure.
So I just launched a website, and there's not much there. I'm waiting on I'm hoping like a few things I've worked on will drop in the next couple months so I can beef up the portfolio. I'm booking sessions starting in March. Like I'm booked through March right now. I'm just recording every other weekend for tracking sessions so that I actually have time to mix between, because I'm doing like all my own editing, mixing, the whole thing. So yeah, I'm just going to try to book as many sessions as I can in 2022 and make as many records as we can. Hope it goes well.
Very cool. Sounds good. So you got anything you want to plug, or where can we find you, I guess, or do you want to advertise that out?
Yeah, I've got a website, chiptoothaudio.com. People can find me there. They can also send an email at dan@chippedtoothaudio.com. And if there's something they want to work on, go ahead and advertise it out. And
sweet.
Yeah,
we can put all your stuff down our description thing, cool. So that way folks can find you. And yeah, cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for doing this for us today, Dan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man. We'll talk to you later.
Great talking to you. Yeah, have a good one.
See ya.
Hey guys, just wanted to jump in here and let you all know we're changing up the format a little bit for how we do musical features. So from this episode going forward, we're going to have our musical guests send in a video talking about how they about the song that they submitted and the song that we're featuring. If you'd like to be featured on the show, hit us up, reach out to us at woodwirewatts@gmail.com. That's woodwirewatts with an S. This week's musical feature, along with being our topic guest, is also Dan with his project Sparkle Teeth. So the next clip you're going to see is going to be him talking about that. Remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, you won't get to hear the featured song, and that's just because of YouTube's copyright issues. Go down to the link in the description to hear it, or jump over to the audio version of our podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to your podcasts at. Again, we hope you enjoyed the topic interview with Dan, and now to the music feature.
Hey everybody, it's Dan Cannelly. I have a solo project called Sparkle Teeth, and earlier this year I released an EP of fuzzy alt-rock jams inspired by some of my favorite 90s bands. And I struggled a little bit with figuring out how to promote it because of the pandemic. So I settled on filming a live playthrough of the songs and recruited some of my favorite local musicians. Bambi Guthrie handled all the filming at one of my favorite local venues, the Brass Rail, and we recorded everything using the mics they had on hand through their Behringer X32 console and into Logic. And then I brought it home to my studio here at Chiptooth Audio, and I mixed it. And that was a really interesting process, mixing something that had been recorded totally live with no overdubs. And I hope you enjoy it. Here's Slack.
So next week, tune in. We're going to have a special holiday episode. We'll let you know when it gets a little bit closer to the episode release date what's actually happening, but it's going to be some good stuff. Thanks for joining us on Wood, Wire, and Watts. Until next time, tune up,
Crank the volume,
and let it rip.